Hi, it's UsingSTEM, and I'm challenging myself to build a UsingSTEM website completely from scratch in just 7 days. The idea is simple, a platform where AI and STEM projects, ideas, and experiments can be shared in a creative and accessible way. This series is inspired by Cal Holland documented builds, and throughout the process, I'll be using ChatGPT as assistants to speed things up and keep myself focused. Over the next week, I'll be documenting the journey, not line by line, but through clear explanation of what I built each day, along with the struggles I faced and the wins that kept me going. My goal is to have a working website by the end of these 42 hours and to share the true ups and downs of creating something from nothing in just 7 days. So thank you so much for clicking on this video, and I hope you enjoy following along with the journey. On day one of building my website, I started with the basic. I downloaded Node.js, which is like the engine that lets you run modern JavaScript outside the browser. And then I set up React, which is the framework I'm using to build the site. From there, I create a React website template, clean up the extra files, and explore what was actually inside the template. Pretty quickly, I ran into styling. Normally, you would use plain CSS file, but React often makes CSS with JavaScript, which can get really tricky. I wanted to style labels directly into my code. And after trying with a few things, I discovered something called style components. This lets you write CSS right into the JavaScript and TypeScript files, which turned out to be cleaner and more powerful. I also borrowed some CSS from my older project to set up a basic heading layout. Routing, or moving between different pages of the site, was my next challenge. At first, I couldn't make a router link work to go from one page to another. I spent more time debugging, but the solution I found was too complicated or not ideal. Instead, I started fresh and created another React template, but this time with TypeScript instead of plain JavaScript. TypeScript is a more structured version of JavaScript that adds type checking, helping spot mistakes before the code even runs, and I knew it would give me a project a strong and more reliable base. I also set up something called the add symbol for the file path. Normally, when you import files into React, you have to write a long, messy path. Using add is to create a shortcut so my imports are clean and consistent. While setting up multi-routing in index.txx, I made sure the layout displayed correctly, with the heading on top, the page content in the middle, and the footer on the bottom. Getting that structure right was an accomplishment, especially dealing with the early routing issues that made navigation confusing. At this point, I started comparing React and Vue 2, which I have used before. Vue felt much more simpler, while React with TypeScript felt way more complex, but also more powerful once I got the hang of it. Eventually, I fixed the router link so that when I click on the sign in button, it actually went to the sign in page, and the home page worked as well. That felt like a small but important win after several failed attempts. Then I went back to the style components, learning how they connect with the plain HTML, and I used the knowledge to finish the heading of the home page. I also added a footer. At the same time, I reused the design from the old Vue 2 project. I converted its homepage into React and used it as a base of my new homepage. I eventually applied the same design to the sign-in and register page, while figuring out how React use effects and on-click function works on control behavior. Another key milestone for making my site more interactive. After that, I moved on to something experimental, the Learn page. I built it with 3 sections and filled with playlists as placeholder. My goal was to make those sections draggable horizontally, like how you can swipe through a carousel on Netflix. This was the toughest challenge of the day. The cursor isn't shown as a hand when dragging. Dragging sometimes doesn't even work at all. And other times it was misinterpreted as clicking on the playlist instead of moving it. I spent a while troubleshooting, and although it wasn't perfect, I made a solid progress and learned a lot from the errors. Finally, I wrapped up the day by fixing CSS for those 3 sections, making the layout more stable and clean, ending day 1 with a functional structure, smoother navigation, and a growing confidence in building with React and TypeScript. So in the 6 hours, I managed to set up the project, switch from JavaScript to TypeScript, create a homepage and a footer, fixing router and building sign-in and register page, and experiment with the Learn page that had draggable sections. It was definitely a mix of small victories and frustrating struggles, but that's what makes it interesting.